We continue now at the top of Daf Samach Zayin Amud Aleph in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 67a. The Gemara here continues Rava's statement of three things that can release property from a lien, and the last one is V'shichur, if you free a slave, Mafkiyan midei shiva, that also can release the slave from the lien. Rashi over here says V'shichur Yisrael sheshibed avdo lebal chov. Let's say you have a Jew, and he said that he was going to designate his servant as payment for a bal chov, for a loan that he had. V'shichro halova, but then he goes ahead, the borrower goes ahead and frees the slave, so yatsa l'cheira, so the slave goes free. And now the malva has to collect from a different place. He's not allowed to collect from the slave anymore. It undoes the lien that he had on the Eved. And the Gemara continues. Amar Rav Yehuda says, "Hichnisa lo shnei kelim be'elef zuz." Let's say in the beginning of the marriage, she brings in two kelim, and they're worth 1,000 zuz. And then what happens is, when the marriage is over, let's say there's a divorce, so now it's worth 2,000 zuz. So echad notelaso b'chsubasa. So one of them she's allowed to take as her ksuba. Like we said, according to Rav Yehuda, she's really considered the owner, even by the nichsei tzon barzel, she's considered the owner of the property. Now the loss or the gain goes to the husband, but she really is the owner of the property, so she takes one for herself. V'echad nosenes damim v'notelaso. And the other one, she could just pay money, because again, they gained in value, he's entitled to that gain in value. But if she pays the money, she can take that second kli. Mivnei shevach beisavia, because again, this is considered the improvement or the prestige of the house of her father, meaning to say this is really from her father's household's property, and therefore she's entitled to it. And the Gemara says, Ma'ikol mashmala. Now, what is this coming to teach us? Shevach beisavia didahave, that the shevach beisavia belongs to her. Ha'amr Rav Yehuda chadazimna. Rav Yehuda already said that. That's what Rav Yehuda said in the previous Amud, that again, she's entitled to the actual kalim of the nichsei tzon barzel. And so the Gemara answers, no, what might you have thought? That's only true if it's actually worth what the ksuba is, and she's taking it as her ksuba. But for her to give money and then take, in other words, she's already collected the value of her ksuba, now she's going to pay money and take, maybe you would think that's not allowed. Kamash Mulan, so it's coming to teach us, Rav Yehuda is teaching us that that is allowed. Rashi over here says, in other words, the one that's 1,000 zuz, that which any gain there was, that gain in his possession, that gain in the husband's possession. So maybe he would get the kli that's worth more than the amount of the ksuba, but she wouldn't get that. Maybe that second kli belongs to him forever. Kamash Malan comes to teach us again, both kalim she's entitled to, she just has to pay him whatever there was as a gain in value. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Bas Yisrael shenisas l'kohen. Let's say you have a Bas Yisrael, and she marries a Kohen. Again, when she marries a Kohen, at that time, while he's alive, she's entitled to Truma. Vameis, and then he dies, the Kohen dies. V'hinicha me'uberes, and he leaves her that she's actually pregnant. Now Rashi over here says, V'hinicha me'uberes, afa pi sheyesh labonim hemenu. The case is, it's not just that she's pregnant and she has no other children. She has other children as well. V'yochelas b'truma, and because of those other children, as we've noted before, if she has children from a Kohen, she gets to continue to eat the truma even though the Kohen has died. Still, lo yochlu avdei tzon barzel b'truma. Still, as we're about to see in the Mishnah, because she's pregnant, so her avdei tzon barzel are not allowed to eat truma. Why? Lefi shein shel yarshim, because again, the halacha is the tzon barzel really belongs to the husband. In this case, the husband died, so it really belongs to his yarshim, to his children. So therefore, the avdei tzon barzel, they belong to the yarshim. V'yesh leuber bahen chelek, and it comes out that the fetus also has a portion. The fetus is also a yorish once he's going to be born. He also has a portion in the avdei tzon barzel, and the halacha happens to be ve'ein leuber koach lahachilam b'trum. An uber does not have the power to allow them to eat truma. In other words, they belong to the yarshim of the kohen, but it happens to be one of the yarshim is still an uber, and an uber is not able to allow these avodim to eat truma. And there are two possible reasons for this. The Gemara will discuss. Imishum de kasavar uber b'mei zara zar. Who one possibility is that if you have a fetus in the womb of a zara, meaning a non-kohen woman, so then that's considered a non-kohen. Imishum de kasavar yilud machil she'en yilud ein machil. Another possibility is only someone that's actually born can allow others to eat truma, but if you have a fetus that's not yet born, that's unborn, not allowed to, that does not allow the servants to eat truma. Shenamar, like it says, v'yilid beso heim yochlu b'lachmo kari be'yachilu. It says yilid beso, and we understand yochlu to mean yachilu, to cause others to eat. So therefore, those are the two possibilities in terms of why the avodim are not allowed to eat truma. The Mishnah here continues again, V'yinicha muberes lo yochlu avodah b'truma. If she's pregnant, so her avodim are not allowed to eat truma, mipnei chelko shel uber, because of the portion that the uber has as an owner, so to speak, of these avodim. Sheha uber posel ve'eno machil divrei Rabbi Yossi, because an uber, number one, the uber is able to passel someone from eating truma, and the uber also does not allow someone to eat truma, and this is all Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rashi over here explains Shuber Posel in Bas Kohen Nisas Yisrael. This would be in the other case. Let's say a Bas Kohen the other way around. Let's say a Bas Kohen would marry a Yisrael. So V'hinicha Muberes, and then so the halacha is that if a Bas Kohen marries a Yisrael at that time while she's married, she's not allowed to have truma. If the Yisrael dies, she goes back to Beis Aviha and she can have truma. But if she had children with the Yisrael, that's a problem. Now let's say she didn't have children with the Yisrael. Let's say she was only pregnant with the Yisrael. Ve'ein la ben acher, she has no other children. Still, post la miloshav la Beis Aviha kinorah. The fact that she's pregnant, that's enough to passel her, does not allow her to return to the house of her father. The Eno Machil, and again, like we said before, the Uber doesn't allow others to eat Truma in Bas Yisrael Kohen. In other words, if she's a Bas Yisrael married to a Kohen, Vames, and he dies, V'hinicha Muberes, let's say he leaves her pregnant and she has no other children, so again, she has to have children to be able to eat Truma. If he leaves her pregnant, Ein Bu'uber, Koach Lahachila, the fetus does not have enough strength to allow her to eat Truma, and as we said already in the Mishnah, V'hu Adin La'avadim, and the same thing would be true for Avadim. If the Uber has a Chelek in the Avadim, those Avadim cannot eat Truma. And the Mishnah continues, Amru lo, they said to him, meaning the Chachamim said back to Rabbi Yossi, if you're already telling us about a case of a Bas Yisrael that marries a Kohen, give us another case. Af Bas Kohen l'Kohen v'meis. Let's have a case as follows. Let's say she was the daughter of a Kohen, and she married a Kohen and he died. V'hinicha me'uberes, and he left her that she was pregnant. The same thing should be true. Lo yochlu avodeh b'truma, her avodim should not eat truma. Memnei chelko shaluber, because they're owned, part of them are owned, a portion of them is owned by the Uber. Rashi over here says, Af Bas Kohen l'Kohen, Kevan de'amrit she'ein yulud, eino machil. Now this goes like that pshat in Rashi, that if it's not a born child, then it's not doesn't allow others to eat. So how could the avodim eat truma? Because of the portion of the Uber is going to be a problem. Because they belong to him, they belong to the Uber. They're only eating because of him. And as we said, an Uber does not have the strength to allow others to eat. So in other words, the Chachamim say, according to your logic, why does it have to be a Bas Yisrael? It could even be a Bas Kohen, and if she's pregnant, it's going to be a problem for the avodim to eat. And so the Gemara says, they had the following question. What is the reason of Rabbi Yossi? Is the reason because when you have an Uber in the womb of a Zara, again, that was the first case of the Mishnah, Bas Yisrael, so that Uber is considered a Zar, is considered a non-Kohen. O Dilmer, maybe it's the other reason. Yulud machil, she'eno yulud, eno machil. Only a child that's born can cause others to eat, but a child that's not born cannot cause others to eat. And the Gemara says, Lamai nafkamina, what practical difference does it make? Like we said before, L'uber b'mei kohenes. Let's say you have an Uber, and the Uber is in the womb of the kohenes. So in that case, it's not in the womb of a Zara, it's in the womb of a kohenes. So therefore, if the reason is because an Uber b'mei Zara is considered a Zar, this Uber would not be considered a Zar. So the Gemara says, what is the halacha? Amar Rabba, so Rabba says, Hainu taima de Rabbi Yossi. The reason of Rabbi Yossi is, Dekasavar Uber b'mei Zara, Zarhu, because we say that a fetus in the womb of a Zara is considered a non-Kohen. Rav Yosef Amar Rav Yosef says the other reason, Yulud machil she'en yulud eno machil. Only a child that's born can allow others to eat. An unborn child cannot allow others to eat. And the Gemara continues, Meisvei, we have a question from the following brisa. This brisa is a continuation of the discussion in the Mishnah between Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim. Amru lo Rabbi Yossi, they said to Rabbi Yossi, meaning the Chachamim said to Rabbi Yossi, Me'achar she'yaret olonu al Bas Yisrael l'Kohen. If you're telling us now about a Bas Yisrael l'Kohen, Bas Kohen l'Kohen ma, what would be the halacha by a Bas Kohen l'Kohen? So Amar lahem, so he said to them, Rabbi Yossi responded, Zu shamati, the case of a Bas Yisrael l'Kohen, that I heard that it's aser. V'zu lo shamati, but I did not hear it's aser for the avodim to eat truma in a situation of a Bas Kohen l'Kohen. And so the Gemara says, Yamr b'shalama uber b'mei zara zaru. If you say the reason of Rabbi Yossi is because a fetus in the womb of a Zara is considered a non-Kohen, Hainu dekamarle, that would make sense. His response, Zu shamati v'zu lo shamati. That's what he said. I heard in this case it's aser, but it's not aser in the other case, because if it's in the womb of a Kohenes, it's not a problem. But if you're going to say the reason is that only a born child can allow others to eat truma, but an unborn child cannot, what's the difference? Why is he saying this case it's aser, this case it's not aser? It's the exact same case. And the Gemara says, Kasha, you're right, it's difficult. This does seem to indicate that it's only a halacha if it's in the womb of a Zara, but it would not be the same halacha in the womb of a Kohenes. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Zu divrei Rabbi Yossi. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Avol Chachamim Omrim, but the Chachamim say, Yesh lo bonim ochlim. If he has children, if he has sons, then they can eat truma. Mishum bonim, because of the children. Ein lo bonim, if there are no sons, no children, ochlim mishum achim, then the avodim are actually allowed to eat truma because of the brothers. And ein lo achim, if there are no brothers, ochlim mishum mishpacha kula. They can eat because of the whole mishpacha. In other words, in all situations, the avodim will be able to eat. Rashi over here says, Yesh lo bonim acherim levad me uber zeh. Let's say there are other children besides for this uber. So ochlim ho avodim b'shvil bonim. So we don't care about the uber. They can eat because of the other children. The uber less le zechiyah. In other words, what he's saying is that according to the Chachamim, Shmuel is saying, according to the Chachamim, the uber has no zechiyah. Therefore, the uber has no rights to the avodim. The avodim are only owned by the children, and therefore, on account of the children, they can eat truma. And even if there are no children, b'shvil mishpacha, there's got to be some family that's inheriting them. Shein echad mi Yisrael shein lo yarshin. Nobody has no inheritors. V'chol zman shelo nolad ha'uber. As long as the uber has not been born, zocha ha'karav liyerushas kohen v'ochlim begino. So whoever is the relative is going to get the yerusha of the kohen, and they can eat because of him. In other words, what the chachamim are saying is it doesn't make a difference about the uber. The fact of the matter is there's some relative that's going to inherit these avodim. We don't care about the uber, and therefore they're allowed to eat truma. And so the Gemara continues, Zu velo svirale. When he says Zu, so Shmuel is implying this is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and I don't hold of Rabbi Yossi. Is that really true, that he doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi? Ha'amar le Shmuel Rav Chana begadeta. But Shmuel said to Rav Chana begadeta, Rashi over here says, Zu divrei Rabbi Yossi velo svirale le Shmuel de uber isle zechiyah. Meaning it sounds like Shmuel holds that an uber has no zechiyah, unlike Rabbi Yossi, who seems to say that an uber has zechiyah. Begadeta, what does it mean begadeta? Bala goda. So one explanation is, when we call him Rav Chana begadeta, it means he was a Bala Goda. He said a gadeta. Lishnachrina Shem Makom Shu Bebavel Shmo Baghdad. It's the name of a place in Bavel called Baghdad, so he was Rav Chana from Baghdad. But in either case, Shmuel said to Rav Chana begadeta, Pok Aisi Li Be'asara, go bring out 10 people, meaning let's publicize the following halacha. De'em Oloch Ban Pai, I'm going to say to you in front of them, Hamizake Le'uber Kona, that if somebody tries to give something to a fetus, the fetus is Kona. So on the contrary, from that it sounds like Shmuel does hold like Rabbi Yossi. Shmuel holds that an uber does have zechiyah. And so the Gemara instead says, you're right, Elazu usvirale. Rather, what he means is, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and Shmuel is saying, I also agree with Rabbi Yossi's opinion. And the Gemara continues, Ma'ika Mashmal, and according to that, so what is Shmuel teaching us? To pligi Rabbanan oled Rabbi Yossi. He's simply teaching us that the Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Yossi, but Shmuel isn't saying that he holds like the Rabbanan. Shmuel actually holds like Rabbi Yossi. But the Gemara continues, Umi pligi, but is that really true? Do the Rabbanan really argue on Rabbi Yossi? Meisiv Reb Zakkai zu edus heyed Rabbi Yossi mi pishmaya v'avtalion. And the Bach over here changes the girsa from Meisiv Rabbi Zakkai to v'ha'amar Rabbi Zakkai. But didn't Reb Zakkai say that this psak of Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah was testified by Rabbi Yossi from Shmaya and Avtalion v'hodulo, and the Chachamim admitted to it, meaning it sounds like from this that the Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Yossi's position. And so the Gemara responds, Amar Rav Ashi says, Mi katani v'kiblo. It doesn't say they accepted what Rabbi Yossi said. V'hodulo katani, it just says that they admitted to him, meaning to say, to mistaber taimi, that what he's saying is logical, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they agreed. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Hiniach bonim, let's say the Kohen died and he left children. So then the halacha is elu ve'elu ochlim, all kinds of avodim, whether they're avdei melug or whether they're avdei tzon barzel, they can eat truma. Rashi over here says, Hiniach bonim hakohen v'lo inicha muberis. The case is he left children, but he didn't leave her pregnant. So elu ve'elu, avdei melug ve'avdei tzon barzel ochlin, both avdei melug and avdei tzon barzel can eat truma. The avdei melug ochlin b'shvila, the avdei melug can eat because they're owned by her. Shehi ochelas b'shvil banem, because she's allowed to eat truma, because she has children, and therefore they're her avodim, so they can also eat truma. And of course, the Avdei Tzon Barzel, they're inherited by the sons, and so therefore they can eat because of the sons. So that means to say, if it's Hiniach Bonim, so in such a situation, all kinds of Avodim can eat the Truma. Hinicha Muberis, now let's say he left her pregnant, and Rashi says, V'lo Hiniach Labonim, and there's no other children, she's just pregnant. So Elu ve'elu, Ein Ochlim, so the halach is that both kinds of Avodim, they're not allowed to eat Truma. Rashi over here says, Elu ve'elu, Ein Ochlin, Sha'uber, Eino Machel, because a fetus doesn't allow them to eat. Lo esima v'lo es avodim. It doesn't allow the mother to eat, and it doesn't allow the avodim to eat. So therefore, none of the servants in that case are going to be allowed to eat from the truma. Now, hiniach banim v'hinicha muberes. Now, let's say he left sons, but also she was pregnant. So in that case, avdei melug ochlim. So then the avdei melug can eat the truma kederach shehi ocheles, just like she eats truma. She has children, so therefore she eats truma, and her avadim can eat truma. But avdei tzon barzel lo yochlu. But when it comes to the avdei tzon barzel, they cannot eat truma mibnei chelko shel uber, because the uber owns a portion of them. Shel uber posel ve'eno maichel, like we said in the Mishnah. According to Rabbi Yossi, the uber can passel someone from eating truma, but doesn't allow someone to eat truma. Divrei Rabbi Yossi. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. And Rashi over here explains, hiniach banim v'hinicha muberes. Again, if she has sons and also she's pregnant, avdei mulug ochlim sheim shalo. Again, the avdei mulug are hers; they can eat. Ve'in uber chelik ben. The uber has no chelik in them, because again that belongs to her. It doesn't belong with the yarshim. V'yochelas b'shvil banah. She can eat because of her children, and therefore they can eat. But avdei tzon barzel lo yochlum imnei chelko shel uber sheyesh lo chelik ben. The uber has a portion in the avdei tzon barzel di islay zechiyah, because again we said according to Rabbi Yossi, the uber does have zechiyah; he's able to acquire. V'lo yadin and hay misrami lechelko. We don't know which exact evet is his. Lefika chavadim asurim lechol. Therefore, all of these avadim where he has a portion in them, it's also for them to eat truma. And the Gemara continues, the Brisa continues, Rabbi Yishmael b'Rabbi Yossi Omer Misham Aviv. Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yossi, says in the name of his father, Habas ma'acheles haben eno ma'achel. If you're talking about a daughter, so the daughter can allow them to eat, but the son cannot allow to eat. Rashi over here says, Habas ma'acheles lekamon mefarish la. This will be explained later on what that means. And the Brisa continues, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, Zecharim yochlu. If there are male children, so then the avdei tzon barzel can eat truma. But kulan nekevos, but if all the children are females, so lo yochlu. So then the avodim cannot eat the truma. Shema yimsa uber zachar, because maybe it's going to turn out that the fetus actually is male. Ve'ein levanos b'makam haben klum, and the daughters don't inherit anything when there is a son, and therefore they have no portion. They all belong to the fetus, and that's going to be a problem. Rashi over here explains, Achi garsinon zecharim yochlu. If there's a male, so then they can eat truma. Kulan nekevos lo yochlu, but if they're all female, then it's a problem. And Rashi says, if there's a male child, the avodim can eat because of the male child. We're not afraid of the portion of the fetus. Why? Number one, maybe that fetus is a female. And a female doesn't get a portion if there's a son. And even if that fetus is a male, maybe it'll be a miscarriage. Because anyone who gives birth, it's a 50-50 chance, male or female. And then there are some who have a miscarriage. So smoch miuta de mapilos lemechzen de nekevos. If you add the few amount of miscarriages to the 50% of females, havelu zechorim haruim liyarish miuta. There's less than a 50% chance that this will be a male who will inherit. Well, the miuta lo chashin, and we're not concerned with the less than 50% chance, and therefore that's why we say again, in a situation where you have a male, we're not worried about the fetus. But kula nekevos lo yochlu. But if all of the children that are alive right now are females, so then they can't eat truma. Shema yehei uber zachar, because maybe it's going to turn out that the uber is a zachar, and again, if the uber is a zachar, you're going to have a problem over here because the uber is going to inherit and not the nekevos. And so the Gemara now continues. Why do you have to throw in there? Why does Rav Shimon bar Yochai say maybe it will turn out that the fetus is a male? Typically, you can give another answer. Typically, he could just say the nekeva nami pasla, that a nekeva also would be a problem. Rashi over here says, typically, the inami have a nekeva. Even if the fetus was a nekeva, pasla would pasl. The keva and the shakalos and lefanenu nekevas, because since all of the other children are nekevas, it's still the same problem. Yesh uber chelik ben. This uber is also going to get a portion of the avadim. Afilu hi nekeva, even if she's a nekeva. And so the Gemara answers, Chadav Yod Ka'amar, when Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was saying maybe it will turn out that the Uber is a Zachar, he was saying one argument and there's another argument as well. Chadav de Nekeva Nami Pasla. Of course, number one, even if it would be a Nekeva, they would still be Pasal to Truma, because again, the Uber is going to have a Chelek in the Avodim. V'yod, and furthermore, even more than that, Shema Yimsa Uber Zachar, maybe it's going to come out the Uber is a male, Ve'in Levanos B'makam ben Klum, and then the daughters are not going to get anything if there is a son. And so the Gemara continues, Zecharim yochlu. So it says that if there's a male, so then they can eat. So the Gemara asks, Va'ika uber, but what about the uber? And the Gemara answers to that, Kasavar, he holds, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Zayin Amud Beis.